today we got to play Falling. Now, this is a game of worker placement, well, not really worker placement, action selection?
Area movement, modular board, and variable player powers.
Yeah, so there's some stuff going on, but before we get into it, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and that notification bell because board games are amazing, and that's what we do here at Legends of Nirvana. Now, Randy, can you tell us a little bit more about Falling?
Sure, this is a 2025 release, but I think that's just because the Kickstarter is going up in late February. It's not live yet. I just went out and checked. As far as there's this one being, since it's brand new, there's no Board Game Geek rating or rank for it yet. 1 to 4 player game, average length of 90 to 120 minutes, age 12 and up. Designed by Kentaro Yazawa. Art is by Sai Beppu and Tomohiro Sugawa. Published by Sunny Bird, which is, I'm assuming, the Japanese publisher, and then Capstone would be translating it for other countries. Mechanisms, as we mentioned, area movement, modular board, variable player powers. And that's really all I got on it. I don't know the price point this will be at. I don't know any of that information because the Kickstarter is not live yet.
Okay, yeah, so this is a preview, so that's kind of exciting that we get to see it. Yeah, we get to see it kind of before it's even live on Kickstarter, so that's really cool. So let's talk about, well, it's hard to talk about quality of components.
Yeah.
We do know that there are going to be some nice inlaid boards and some shaped wooden pieces because that's what they already have. They mentioned that they're going to be screen printing those. And doing a little bit more detail.
Even the prototype has some screen printing, but they're not sized appropriately to fit in the board. Currently, they said by the time it goes live and they produce the final product, it will definitely fit. Everything will fit.
Yeah, and you've got the actual, so the actual main board is also inlaid to hold your worker markers and some tracks, which is actually, I find very, very helpful as far as the gameplay goes. You do get cardboard money. And
we don't know if this will be the final version, but they have cardboard gas and coin, but they do have wooden bits for the bricks and the ore.
Yeah.
And then the Ascension style gems in blue. They gave us a bunch. You don't need this many, that's for sure, because they're one of the more scarce resources. And you also have,
I mean, and they said in the
cardboard seals.
The cardboard seals. So overall, we don't know what the overall quality for the cards will be either, but I assume, that will be part of that Kickstarter bit. Overall, I think this is leading into a lot of potential. I can't wait to see what the final product will look like. Moving on to the actual theme. The theme is the tower is falling and you're trying to gain into a portal and you're trying to gain as much resources before the tower completely disappears.
Well, yeah, it's not just falling, it's falling kind of through the dimension. It's like an old race that was long lost, that their tower was floating through the air and is coming down through the earth and going into like a kind of a portal into another dimension. I don't understand it. It has nothing to do with the gameplay, really. The gameplay is all about basically maximizing your victory points by climbing. I guess the climbing aspect has something to do with it, but you're placing units onto the board.
And then the areas that are being explored fall off and new are coming through, and you have to continuously climb. So even though you were up higher, you get low. You end up getting back down to the bottom because it's slowly falling. So, I mean, I think there is a little bit, with the mechanic style, but it's really not heavy or integral to the gameplay as much as that some other games have. But still, it's fine. I mean, as far as the artwork goes, it's a lot of fun. I liked it. It's very cute's not the right word, but it's very anime style.
Yeah, so if you're a fan of anime, the art is going to appeal to you. I personally am not. I know you are. So she loves the art. I could take it or leave it. It's fine. Yeah,
I mean, but again, I love anime. So so theme wise, I think they could have done more to integrate it. But still, it's fine, and the artwork's good. So I'm happy here. Then moving on to the rule book. So this obviously is a prototype rule book. We actually had to print our rule book because the rule book
we got was completely in Japanese, and I don't read Japanese. The only things that weren't were like the title. Everything else was. So we had to go on to Board Game Geek where they have a full PDF of the rules. Printed that out, and it's 24 pages in length once you print it out. The rules were fairly clear, but there's definitely some translation issues, and there's definitely some things missing as we go through the rules. And we've been providing feedback back to Capstone on some of the gaps we saw, but they said this is not the final version. There's
No, so we're
clear by the time they finish.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, Capstone has always provided really good.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So we don't have any concerns on that front. But we just expressing what we currently saw. Now, moving on to the actual gameplay. I actually really enjoyed myself, guys.
It's a light game, but there's still a lot of decisions to make. That the strategy is there. I mean, you're each turn you have basically a free action you can take, which is applying one of these seals to an action space that you have on your board.
But you have to earn the seals first through different ways.
Yeah, you may start with one. The typical standard does start with one, but they have the variable player powers, which have different starting resources. So you may or may not have a seal. And then you've got on your main board, there's one action that comes with it that does basically exchange rate for doing different resource to another resource. But you can build up additional skills. Each round you'll get another skill card, which you can decide. It's two-sided. You can flip it which way you want to apply it.
Yeah. So during the game, when it is your turn, you have a couple of actions. So Randy mentioned the free action with the seals, but the other actions, you can either move up, so basically you can travel up the tower, and you can either move one or how many ever spaces up, but you have to pay the cost, right? So the first step is 2, the third is 3, the fourth is 5 and a resource, and then going up and so forth. So when you land on wherever you go, you get a benefit for doing it. So that's helpful. Is it the same as the cost? No, it's not.
No.
For example, I paid 2 gas and I could land and get 1. So, I mean, I'm still losing resources. However, you do get different benefits going up different tracks, so depending on what you're needing. And we played 3 and 4 players. The bottom rows get filled up very, very quick. So you have to climb to be able to place your buildings, because everywhere ends up very full, very fast. And so that is part of why you have to climb. So one action is, again, to move up. The second action is to actually play a building on your board. So if you see Randy, he has a bunch of his buildings. The resource cost is down here in the red. So you pay that, you place that building up, and you put it on one of these locations.
Choose any of the locations up to the player count. So they have certain spaces that are marked based upon how many players. And then there's also a special space on the boards, but it only can be applied onto those if you're in one of the top 3 tiers. So these blue ones on these 2 I could not place on, but if I paid 1 gas and 4 coin, I could build a refinery device, and I'm on this row, so I have to play it on this row. But I can go to any space. This one here gives me 5 victory points, and I would apply there. I would get to move 5 victory points, but also I get whatever the row bonus is, which is
1 cloud. Yeah, absolutely. Now the thing to keep in mind is, okay, why would you want to build these buildings? Because they give you production at the end of the round. Now, mind you, so the first time we played, we made a mistake and we assumed it was cumulative. It is not. You get the top row.
And it's in the rules that it's not cumulative.
It
was an oversight.
We just flaked. Okay, but it is just the top row, and so the topmost row is what the benefits that you get. But there's also, so when these fall off at the end of the round, they'll come back and you'll end up placing them again top to bottom. But there is bonuses for putting those back on there.
Yeah.
So that becomes helpful as well.
And each round you have to respawn back at the bottom and build yourself back up. So you can't just stay at level 3 and go start from there. You have to reset. This has some unique mechanisms. When you pass, this is one of the most unique things. I don't think I've ever seen a game like this. When you pass, the turn order is redetermined. That's common. But there's tiers below each one of the passes. So if I pass early, and everybody else is still taking actions, I gain resources every round I'm setting out. And some of them are pretty good. By the time, if you set out for 5 rounds in the first tier, you're going to get 3 victory points, and that keeps happening every round after that. So, there's a few times I benefited from that, where I think you had a bunch of buildings you were going to build, so I just passed and just kept getting the victory points. Not to mention you're building up some resources. Granted, you're not getting the same exchange rate as if you were building the buildings and such, but if I didn't have the resources to build the buildings, it's not a bad consolation.
So it is definitely a catch-up mechanism.
I don't see it that way.
It definitely is.
Whatever.
Basically, if you're behind and you can't manage your resources good enough,
well, it depends on what resources you get.
I don't know. Catch-up mechanisms always bug the bejeebas out of me, but at the same time, it does mean that the game stays close, right? And that and a lot of people find more enjoyment in having closer scores than to be completely blown out of the water because you screwed something up the first round. So I understand that, but part of my inner soul was like, it's a catch-up mechanism.
Yeah, my first thought was I wish we could apply this to Terraforming Mars, because when we're playing with with Caleb, he tends to take way longer than anybody else.
But you can't do that with Terraforming Mars, because once you have blue cards, like if you want the blue card strategy, like whatever.
Well, but it discourages someone from spending a long time taking turns. You have to weigh. I'm giving everybody else a bunch of stuff who's passed. Do I want to continue?
Well, for this game, it makes sense.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't know Terraforming Mars.
I don't. I just like. I
think you just lost quite a bit lately.
I have lost. So then the other thing that's new is the scoring system. They have a rondel, if you will, but there's nothing gained on it except for it goes up from 0 to 9, and then you cross over and you get on 10 you get a victory point card. And the victory point card has a bonus perk on the backside, and you also keep that card, and then you respawn back at 0 and just keep going around again. So nobody can really keep track of what your actual score is, because no one knows how many cards you've accumulated unless you're really paying attention. So you can look back at your cards and yourself and do count, but you don't have a clue where you are compared to the other players unless you're just really paying attention to their score.
The one thing that we also didn't talk about is these cards here. Mm-hmm. So one thing is at the beginning of the round, you will get one card, and it is two-sided. You get to pick which side, and this is your resource card. And then Randy talked about building up skills. So like, when you can get, so you draw one for the first round, there's a total of 4 rounds, so you'll end up with 4 different skills, and you choose which side to put it on. Like, so I have one that gives me production at the end of the round, but then I have another one that lets me change that brick into 3 coins, right? And I can do that twice around. So then I'm going to choose what benefits me the most, and be like, okay, well, I don't really have a production yet for bricks, so I'm just going to choose that one, so that at the end of the round I can get a brick. Then you also will get 1 4 at the beginning of the game, and at the end you'll get a second 4, and you'll choose what skill to place on the 4.
Yeah, and that's important because there's some that give you victory points in that skill set that you might want to build up your production toward. Now, what we did find was some of them felt like they're a bit uneven, because like I had one that you traded in 2 of these seals to get 10 victory points. And Caleb had one that you traded 5 money to get 10 victory points. Well, seals are worth 2 victory points apiece. So I'm trading 4 victory points for 10, and they're hard to come by. Caleb had coin, which is relatively, compared to the seals, easier to come by. It's still hard, especially when you're playing with multiple players. But it's only worth 1/8 of a victory point for each coin you have left. So he was trading 1/4 of a point for 10 victory points, whereas I was trading 4 points for 10 victory points. So yeah, I felt that some of them were a bit uneven.
Well, but then at the same time, you have 4 resources for 10 victory points, and each resource is worth 1/4. So you're looking at 1 for 10. So there's different. So I do admit that some of these weren't quite all well, and just even with this one, on the other side it gives you 3 cloud, but this one gives you 3 money, a cloud, and a gem. That is so astronomically different. But you do have a choice of 4, so your choice. But that's not the case with all the other cards. So some of them, whatever. So overall, I actually really enjoyed this game. I had a lot of fun. I'm probably going to give this a 7.5. I really enjoyed it. It was fun.
That's probably where I am right now. I think this is one I think I could see getting out. It's an easy setup and playing it repeatedly because it's a quick little game to learn, and it's not very complex. So it's not something if you put it away for a while you're going to forget how to play. So I like those kind of games. It reminds me of like not gameplay wise, but the same kind of skill level as like It's a Wonderful World. It's something it's simple to learn. There's not a lot of mechanics that are just deep into it, but it's still got it's thinky about what you want to do, just strategically for the round.
Now I will caveat that both Andrew and Adam were both kind of like we're not sure as much fun level, but they're more of a but I had a lot of fun doing it. So I guess
well, Caleb likes very thematic games.
He does.
Adam likes more depth in his games. So it depends on your crowd. It's really what it comes down to.
Right, and honestly, this game has a lot of opportunity to increase their thematics. Why they could have put why am I getting 3 mines in a cloud? Like they could do a little excerpt there. Because
but we don't know if there's any intention of doing that. So we can't really specify.
No, we can't. But I mean, that's just they have potential to add it. Whether they do or not, we don't know. We'll see. We'll see at the Kickstarter.
And then we didn't mention the variable player powers. They have these creatures that you basically can shuffle these up and deal randomly to each player. They're 2-sided, so you can either choose either side. One is supposedly more complex than the other, but I didn't feel any of them were that complex. And then you've also got a base one on your board that's just production. So you can choose when you get your tile, do I want this creature, or the one that's on my board? And the one on the board is by default all the same on all the boards. So you can play it where everybody has the same power, or you can do the variable player powers. And
then essentially then you have a choice of 3, right, on either side of the one tile that you received or the main basic one.
None of them felt like they were overpowered. They all felt pretty balanced. From what I saw.
Yeah, they're not.
Yeah.
Some of them I was like, I don't know what this means.
In many cases you're trading production for a special ability, but is it worth the production loss for that? It's hard to say.
Yeah, it is hard to say because you don't know. Overall, I enjoyed it. Had fun though. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Definitely check this out on Kickstarter coming up late February. We'll catch you guys later.
Bye.